Thank you very much for the kind introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. It's great to have your company for such a profound discussion. The topic in itself is in the masthead, urban excellence. So before we go around to sort of decoding it and say what kind of lessons we can or cannot learn, what's the journey forward, we'd like to put our panelists on the spot and sort of get their opinions on how they actually define urban excellence. And if I may start with you, please, Annie.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's been 10 years since I was last in Abu Dhabi, and I'm very excited to be here, and I've seen so much changes. But also thank you for putting me on the spot and giving me such a controversial question to start. I think for me and from my experience, urban excellence doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know, I can kind of share from the Singapore experience where we didn't look at urban as just one side of our development journey. Urban development, urban planning was incorporated in an entire livability framework, right? That encompassed economic development, social development, education, et cetera, and it was forecasted over 30, 40, 50 years now. So for us, we started with a framework, and then we looked at how we wanted to measure our progress. And I think this is where the other important factor we have to consider is that for your city to be, I guess, urban excellent, it's for the city themselves to decide what that means for them. Very often we find that measures, indicators that maybe people in the West like to use or to define livability, they're imbued with a lot of biasness that maybe doesn't make sense for your own particular context. So it's a very roundabout way of saying urban excellence is defined, I guess, by different people to be different things.
Certainly. Emre, may I turn the mic over to you for your perspective? It's Hisham.
Actually, to answer this question, it's not easy, as you said. Everyone can say something else, but I can say that it's no longer about tall towers for the moment or fast growth. It's about harmony, in my opinion. Harmony between economy, environment, and equity. But the cities must not choose between these goals, let's say. They must design for all of these three things, in my opinion. And reaching such a sense of unity and harmony, I think it's not easy, but not possible either, impossible either. It is visible in cities that somehow take design seriously, not just as a style, but as a framework of life, let's say. Urban excellence begins when design helps connect these systems, let's say spatial, social, and ecological. And in that sense, it would be relevant to talk about metrics and meanings, maybe. Let's start with metrics now. And yes, carbon emissions per capita, economic resilience, access to housing, and green space. These are essentials, but metrics alone don't guide cities. They need stories behind them. Data only becomes useful when it helps people make better, more human decisions. And when we approach that matter by discussing a few cities or some examples, let's say some cities are already showing what this can look like. For example, Paris is reshaping itself somehow around this approach of 15-minute city. The idea is very simple. Every resident should reach life's essentials within a short walk or bike ride. It's not just about transit, it's about giving people time back, and it reduces emissions, supports local economies, and invites daily interaction in the city. In Amsterdam, for example, this donut economics pushes this thinking deeper. The city asks, are residents thriving? And are we doing it so within the limits of the planet? This led them to think affordable housing with low carbon construction. It shows how data can reshape policy. and not just monitor it when shared and visualized. The cities don't rely on a single idea. They integrate, they overlap systems, economic, environmental, social, and use design to bring them into conversations. I guess this is exactly where it makes sense to talk about some regional momentum. A similar ambition can be seen in this region. I don't know I'm pronouncing right, but Mishraib in Doha revives traditional street life but supports with smart infrastructure. Riyadh's new Murabba aims to blend density, culture and walkability into a coherent vision, and NEOM's, let's say, the line process a radical form, compact, car-free and data-driven. But then as an architect, speaking from let's say direct experience in this region, I can say with confidence that boldness alone isn't enough, and what matters in that these projects use metrics to stay grounded, to make sure their ambitions remain livable, and that their design speaks to local identity while responding to global needs.
I think we can come to some specifics later on in the conversation. Greg, if I turn the floor over to you, we talk about urban excellence. Some of the parameters have been offered by our colleagues on the panel. When you look at your entry at Moron as a real estate developer, what's going through your mind in terms of best practices to reach that urban excellence Alamo when you're developing things?
Yeah, thank you for that. The connective social gathering spaces and park spaces, I think, are key, right? It's like we can all develop great housing, great commercial buildings, et cetera. I think drawing together the social network is essential. I read a book a while ago called The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces, and it was written by a guy named William White back in the early 80s, and that had an impact on me as a developer working for large-scale development in urban planning, et cetera. And it's tying together the key social gathering spaces like park spaces, linear parks, the right street network, et cetera. And I think that's key to tying together a community.
Asma, if I may turn the floor over to you. People look at Abu Dhabi. It's a desirable place to look at, to live, and to look at. Of course, urban excellence is key here. So, from Alda's perspective, how do you define it? And of course, what does it mean to you as a company?
Sure. So, for us, I think urban excellence metric, or if you want to look at the KPIs to measure your urban excellence, you just don't look at only the economic return or the GDP. Now we're looking at much more than just the economic return, which is basically how can we deliver integrated cities, thriving cities that people would live, work, thrive, retire, and this is how we take it in Aldar. We design intentionally to have our master plans and our developments that takes all of that into consideration, right? For example, cultural district in Saadiyat Island or Fahad Island, which we just launched, that is intentionally designed this way from the get-go. And I believe that once you have, that aspect and you nail that aspect, then the economic prosperity will come hand in hand and it will support it.
I'll stay with you for my next question, Asma. We talk about innovation, we talk about excellence, we talk about the role of technology. How can public-private partnerships come into the equation and really play a role in driving this forward?
Sure. So public-private partnership, I believe, is a game changer. Okay. So we, as an Aldar, we partnered with the government. So we are the trusted partner of government of Abu Dhabi. We're building, projects on behalf of the government. We have today almost more than 50 billion dirhams worth of projects that are currently under construction and active projects, right? And we believe that our role is not just to build the projects, but we are part of thriving this ecosystem when it comes to the supply chain, when it comes to, encouraging innovations, international innovations and the know-how, bringing it here locally. And we have a lot of examples that we've been implementing. One of them is the Eco Loop. So it's basically, Greek company. We partnered with them to have a facility here where all of our municipal waste is being recycled almost 100%. So nothing goes to the landfill. And that's something that we brought internationally, we brought here. We partnered with a local company, Tadweer, to really implement such a thing. And there's a lot of examples that Eldar have been implementing. So again, we realize that we have a bigger responsibility than just delivering the projects on time and on budget. It's basically to realize and bring this ecosystem into, we are part of this ecosystem and encouraging this ecosystem.
Sure. Greg, if I may, cities around the world are grappling with this challenge, especially desirable places like Abu Dhabi, where there are there's luxury real estate, and there's also the question, the very profound question of affordable housing. And then thrown into the mix is the sustainability discussion, the discussion about the environment. So when you're conjuring your plans at your firm, how do you view the horizon, and how do you balance this affordable versus luxury debate in light of the sustainability debate that's also coming?
Excellent question. So at Modon, obviously the sustainability measures are key and forefront, and part of that is the social sustainability. So having a variety of housing offerings for all social classes, all economic classes is key. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, sure. Emre, if I may turn over to you, the same questions. How do desirable places sort of go through this discussion of how do we balance luxury versus affordable housing?
I suppose in order to answer to this question, we have to accept that a kind of real core dilemma exists on that sense. I mean, and as an architect, I can say that in one hand there's this demand of luxury, and on the other there's the need of address affordability, ensuring the local residents and workers can access decent housing. So I strongly believe that the key to balancing these demands lies in a strategic, multifaceted approach. And first, we need to look at somehow diversified housing options, like how luxury housing, in my opinion, will be always in a demand. But the other demand is valid as well, and this doesn't mean sacrificing quality in design. I mean, doing affordable housing doesn't mean that you have to somehow sacrifice in quality. We can go deeper inside of this subject, but I can stop here.
Over to you, and Daniel, what is your viewpoint? And of course, if I may contextualize, you based in Singapore,
yeah,
and there are various complexities in the real estate market there as well. But it's in the Singapore government's charter that all housing needs are to be catered to. How do you balance this debate?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is a very technical one, which probably I could speak on for 2 or 3 hours. I think at the core, I agree with actually all the panelists that there will always be this tension where you have private developers who are trying to extract, as much of an ROI as possible, and leaning into luxury developments is, the clear way to do that. So I speak maybe from the government perspective, right? So our work is advising city governments on matters like this, and there are frameworks that can be used to assess these sort of things. I think for us, where we would start and how we would advise is, if you have a projected idea of where you think your economic development journey will take you, and you're extracting this kind of linearly, then you're going to probably find some road bumps along the way. So we start by assessing what is the economic trajectory, the plan A, but actually what are the trends that are affecting the city, and try to extract those non-linearly as well. So you get a better sense of, if this particular trend, AI, for example, either goes gangbusters or doesn't, or if your urbanization rate for some reason falls off at, in 5 years, that will have a very significant impact on your pipeline, luxury or not. You can build out models, right, and say like, look, in housing, affordability and accessibility, that's really one indicator that people really talk about, which is the price to earning ratio. In Singapore, it's 5, but that's a pretty good ratio for a young family trying to buy the first home. But for multimillionaires or many of the people that Abu Dhabi are trying to attract, the PE for a new home is probably 30, 40, or 50. But you also don't want to overcommit. And I think this is where the government needs to step in and be that arbiter of where future demand may or may not be. And so when you do your land parceling out, it can be in a systematic way that says, look, I can fulfill the future housing demand, but the developers will be resilient to potential problems and also can flourish if things go well.
Sure. Yes, gentlemen, Kats here, eminent panelists. We've had various examples of Singapore, from Doha, from Riyadh, from Istanbul, Copenhagen. We've had various cities, but we are at home in Abu Dhabi, and Abu Dhabi offers a great case study in how to balance out and space out the urban real estate with sustainability goals in mind, which then leads me to my next question, which to all our panelists, and I'll start with you, Asma, is that what if the world looks at Abu Dhabi, what kind of lessons can urban planners, when they look at Abu Dhabi, what kind of lessons they can take from here and incorporate best practices in what they do?
Sure. So I'll approach it from a sustainability perspective, right? So, for example, in Al Dar, we have a very clear roadmap for to decarbonize, and we've been doing a lot of amazing progress. Why? Because we're really taking it from the get-go, from the design. It's intentionally designed this way. Our roadmap includes decarbonization, strategies when it comes to design, when it comes to material, when it comes even to enhancing the ecosystem and the local market here by really engaging, for example, in ICB programs, right? And we were one of the first adopters to the ICB program, and we've actually so far reinvested almost 10 billion in the local economy. And we're very proud about that. And we have a lot of policies really to encourage that and even enhance it even more. Using local material, encouraging international best practices, really to decarbonize, to improve, our environment. So I would say, the lessons learned here is that basically take all of that and make sure that it is from the get-go and intentionally designed this way, and it will come, and we've been doing amazing progress on that regards.
Greg, we have delegates from over 100 countries here, international audience. What can urban planners in their midst learn from Abu Dhabi?
I think Abu Dhabi leadership has done a fantastic, remarkable job of ensuring the baseline infrastructure in the city is world class. I mean, the transport network is world class, the power network, that sort of thing. So from like a Modon perspective, as a real estate developer, we can capitalize on that and ensure that we're carrying that forward, putting the right urban planning principles in play. So we, as a developer, we're sitting on a really precious land bank, and it's from scratch. So you can take those world's best practices and implement them across the board in our developments, and that's what we're trying to embed in all of our designs.
Emre, over to you, sir. What is your take on it?
It's important to learn from the mistakes of others, of course, but somehow I believe that all the cities must do their mistakes to learn. I mean, it's not easy to learn from others' mistakes, but again, I strongly believe that Abu Dhabi can take lessons from all the cities, but at the same time apply them somehow. Let's say with its own cultural and economical logic, and when thinking about the future of the city, aligning interests and not choosing sides, let's say, should be embraced as an important and constructive strategy, because the goal is not to pick between, let's say, investors and residents. It's to align their interests with flexible zoning, let's say, somehow mixed-use planning, construction innovation. Abu Dhabi can build a strong, housing market that works for both. At the end of the day, we don't need to lower one side to lift the other. And all of these is being put practice. Sustainability as a form of, let's say, long-term thinking should not be overlooked, in my opinion. And in that sense, affordability and sustainability maybe must go hand in hand.
Your take, please, then.
Sure. I've been actually very impressed because in many parts of the world, I think in many cities we've been to, we see a lot of projects kind of pop up here and there, and many of the projects are either vanity projects or very quick fixes to urban issues. I think what has struck me about Abu Dhabi is that the urban leadership, so not the planners per se, but the people who are making the policy decisions, have taken a very progressive view of how to, I guess, conceptualize the city and move forward. I was struck yesterday morning. I was here for His Excellency Al Sharafa's opening panel, and the way he spoke about how they have been benchmarking, how they have been tracking actually quite detailed metrics at the district level and incorporating them back into their urban plans is a very key, I think, piece of urban management that is missing in a lot of cities. So if you are here from a government or an ambassador, I think one big lesson to bring back home is that actually Abu Dhabi has a very, very strong governance structures around its city's development.
Asma, Daniel has set us up very nicely for the next question. I was about to come to government frameworks. Abu Dhabi is no exception. Like any city in the world, it has legacy infrastructure, legacy sites. It has its own heritage and is trying to aspire to a modern future. How do governance frameworks come into the picture when balancing such a scenario for each city, not just Abu Dhabi? Your opinion on that?
I think, again, I echo, what we said. It's that we do that, everything, like these things are intentional. It is actually from a direction and from, the vision of the leadership is to have, integrated cities, inclusive cities that really preserves our heritage, right? And all of that is built into the policies that we use today to design and to really execute our projects. So, this is how we do it. And it's been really, again, it's not one size fits all. So we do benchmarks, we learn from other cities, and we apply what really fits into our culture, our heritage here in Abu Dhabi.
Greg, over to you, the very same question.
Yeah, so I think healthcare and education have been key, and on both those lines, the frameworks have been set out by DMT, the local planning authorities, et cetera, are really critical in how we're planning our development. So, for instance, on Hudayriyat, the allocation of schools, the allocation of healthcare, wellness, and then all that exterior nature connection, I think, is key. And that's all supported very well by Abu Dhabi government.
So, may I just very briefly, when, we've talked a lot about planning, we talked a lot about a lot of consideration, a lot of parameters we take in. Very briefly, could tell us what's the role of technology, especially for firms such as yourself, as we go find a more digital Alamo? How are you going about it, if I may?
So, technology does help us speed things up. It helps us, I'll use a transport example, integrated transport and that connector model. If you've got smart technologies applied to your transport network, you can kind of move quickly on the dime. You can make sure traffic is flowing, that sort of thing. And I think that technology in that specific sector has been extremely helpful.
Sure. Emre, if I may turn the same question to you. You've seen the world evolve on your watch. So how does technology come to you for you?
Of course, from my perspective, as an architect, using technology is quite dangerous at the same time, and they may be useful as well. It's the matter of how you balance yourself on this matter, because in our offices we use AI since maybe 6 months now, right. And it makes a drastic change. So you see everything in a very different way, and you see everything in a very simple way as well. So if you use technology relevantly, in architectural manner, I said, you achieve some targets very easy, but you should be careful on that, because you can go to very dangerous paths as well.
Daniel, both Emre and Greg have highlighted some of the advantages, some of the pitfalls. It is becoming, when it comes to technological adoption, it is becoming a little bit of a balancing act, shall we say?
Yeah, the big buzzword, maybe in some places now, is still this term called smart cities, right? And what does that mean, really? Our view and our professional view is a bit different. I think smart technology, things that help with monitoring city services, etc. These are all very important evolutions of city management. But I would just, it's a word of caution, right? That smart cities don't come before cities. If you, we use this analogy a lot. If you, have a city that is not well designed, piecemeal, and then you apply smart technology, IoT, all these catchy words on top of it, maybe it will help you figure out where the traffic jams are or where you need more water flow. But the city is still fundamentally broken, right? And so we like to start at the higher end of things, right? What is the goal of the city? What are the conditions that mean livability? And technology comes in as a supporting system, not something that can solve an urban challenge that you think you can kind of wave away.
Sure. Very briefly, and before we come to the closing statement, continuing what you're saying, in terms of when you look in your crystal ball, you see the approaching horizon, do you see more and more adoption of digital techniques, of course, with relevant safeguards?
Yeah.
Is it the inexorable direction of travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think we also don't want to fall into this pitfall where we extract this trend linearly. We don't know, right? I mean, we think we know, but we don't know. I think if people's excitement for adoption of technology is there, then let it continue. But like I said, I think if you're a private developer, the cost saving of better FM facilities management technology, all these are very, very important. That will definitely continue. But I'm talking from the government's perspective that I think if you don't really understand the technology, make sure you plan the city well first.
Sure. So the very same question, do you less or more technology as we...
Yeah, I mean, I think the key point is being specific on that. Because, I mean, we are all getting more global, and then we are all getting questions globally. I mean, what is Abu Dhabi? What's the distinctive manners of distinctive qualities of Abu Dhabi? What is the distinctive, or what are the distinctive, let's say, points like history, sociology? What is different in Abu Dhabi? This is the main question, and I think technology cannot answer to this question directly. You can use technology, but you have to create your clever questions on that.
Sure. Greg, a useful tool, but with limitations.
I would agree with both Daniel and Emmett on that. It provides for a lot of convenience, but the risk is, does it break that human connection, or if it's not managed properly? So I would say that it can be both, but it's got to be managed in the right way.
Hasma, your take on the same theme?
I think it will, technology will enable us to do things faster, achieve better quality. Like, for example, modular construction, or even using IoT for construction, for monitoring our construction sites and what have you. So we'll be able to really to improve our quality, time, and cost by using technology.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm conscious of time. We are coming to the real business end, to the closing end of the panel. And I think it's at this point in time, it's worth asking our eminent panelists about this profound discussion we've had, and what are their key takeaways as we bid goodbye. So I'll start with you, Asma. What are your takeaways from what we've discussed?
I would say, urban excellence is not one size fits all. Okay, so successful cities are the cities that are agile, that are adaptive, that have a story to develop.
Greg, may I have your closing statement?
Yeah, I would second what Asma said. It is, it's key to maintain the social infrastructure along with the primary civil infrastructure.
Emre, over to you, sir.
Okay, I believe that urban excellence in the end from my perspective, is a design challenge, and it asks for integration, not perfection, for vision, not just control, and most of all for care, for the environment, for people, and for the quiet dignity of everyday life.
Daniel, bring us to a close on your thoughts.
Okay, I'm a bit embarrassed you call me an eminent speaker. My takeaway is that urban excellence, it can't happen in isolation. In fact, the most excellent cities are developed in a way where it's not just about urban development. It comes hand in hand with all the other functions. And maybe I'll do a little pitch. If you need help, come talk to me afterwards.
Thank you so much. Our sincere thanks to all our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for them, please.